Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show.
We've got Dave Saben, CEO and President at Assessment Systems Corporation, a hugely successful firm, Inc. 5000, one of the best places to work in Minneapolis. Just a really exciting up-and-coming company. Dave, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hey, Rex, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share with your audience and the group. I'm excited.
Well, I know they're going to be anxious to hear what you have to say. You guys have had a lot of recent success. Dave, why don't you walk us through a little bit of what Assessment Systems does first?
Sure. So Assessment Systems, we're a 40-year-old educational technology company. We started as an extension out of the University of Minnesota to make tests faster and fairer. And the way we do that is through a science called psychometrics, which is very similar to what folks did in the baseball world with cybermetrics, where you started to gather statistics and started to make trends and started to understand people besides human interpretation of those folks. You actually look at their numbers, and we do that with testing data. So, when people
You're talking about
tests,
Moneyball there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we do, but for the testing world. And we make tests better and faster that way because we look at all the data around it. So if there's an item that is discriminating against a certain group, we can inform the organization that's administering that exam that there are validity issues with that item. We can also show them how to make their exams faster. So you're not taking up so much time of people's lives with testing. We believe in testing once and testing accurately. And so we're focused on data-driven practices because that is intrinsic into our organization. Those data practices have resulted, as you said, we're the 13th fastest growing educational company in the United States, and we are one of the best places to work. And we did all of that was done through understanding data, trending data, and interpreting what our people were saying.
That's fantastic. So this is obviously evidence of eating your own dog food. I am curious, has there been a big shift in the market? You're saying it's a 40-year-old company, but very recently you've had this tremendous kind of uplift, this uptick in success. Is there anything in particular you ascribe to that? Is it that focus on the data?
Yeah, it actually is. And so one of the things when I first assumed the role, one of the challenges was that we weren't eating our own dog food. We weren't managing the business the way we manage our tests. Sure. We were fine with analyzing data with our tests, but we weren't doing the same thing on our revenues. We weren't doing the same thing when we look at products. We weren't doing the same thing when we looked at an addressable market. And so I applied a lot of that. We turned the company around from having it was one of the worst places to work in Minneapolis. Our scores on our surveys were dismal, but we always would survey our employees. And one of the things that I did, again, a data-driven practice, is looked at the surveys and started addressing the individual concerns that the employees have. Again, a data-driven approach, sure. Eyes on data and ears on people. So really, really important part of the business. And that's what really changed it. That helped, really catapult our growth.
Sure. No, that's fantastic. I mean, just absolute evidence that what you're preaching here works out for you guys really well, and obviously for your clients as well. Let's start to unpack some of the things we talked about pre-recording here. I love the concept that you illustrated for me of go 5 whys deep. Talk to us a little bit about this idea of reflection, what it means to go beyond just a single why in your business.
Sure. So a couple things. Let me first just digress one quick second, Rex. I believe full believer in that there are two pains in this world. There's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret if you lack discipline. Anything that you're going to do that's meaningful in your life is going to require discipline. Growth requires discipline, and discipline requires focus. So what I've done to keep myself focused is really focus on 5 tenets. The first one is why, is go 5 whys deep into everything. Why are we in assessment? Because we believe in valid tests. Why? Because bad tests can hurt good people. Why? Keep going 5 whys deep in every part of your business forces you to reflect on the business. There's 2 things that you get into when you're running a business. There's the window where you're looking out towards the marketplace that you're going to go after, or towards the new product you're launching, or whatever it is, you're looking out. But one of the most important things as entrepreneurs and leaders of organizations is to look internally, and that's a mirror. And you do that by asking why. Why are you doing that? And what that helps do is gets passion for what you're doing and helps not only your employees, but also your prospective clients understand why. Why is it important for them what you're doing? And I don't care what the solution is you're offering, whether it's heavy farm equipment or whether it is a SaaS-based application, web application. It's something that you have to do to ground yourself. Is that helpful?
Yeah. No, I love it. I think as you're telling me this story, as you're explaining this to the audience here, I'm thinking I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and it just sounds like pull out your inner 5-year-old and just keep asking that stinking ask why, ask why, ask why. One thing that you mentioned that I want to just kind of double down on is the idea that you're doing this for your clients so that they understand why. And the fact is, clients often don't ask that question out loud. They wonder it internally, but I love the idea that you're digging into why and perhaps even communicating that to them so that those questions that maybe they keep silent go answered. That's fantastic.
Yeah, Rex, and the thing is that why is an emotional thing, right? Why is it important to them? If you try to grow a business through statistics without connecting emotionally with other human beings, and human beings are making the determination whether they're going to partner with you, whether it's an employee or prospective client. If you're not hitting the why with those folks, if you're not hitting them in the heart, you're not going to connect with them, and it's not going to be a symbiotic relationship. And so that's really, really important to us.
Yeah, I love it. Well, hit us with the next one. What's the next pillar that you stand by?
Sure. This one's really, really important, especially in the modern world we live in. I'm still not that old. I'm approaching 40 this year. But when I was a young kid, even when I started my career, the economy wasn't as global as it is now. The competition over ideas and innovation had not fully been realized yet. The internet, with all the great advances it gave us, really is driving human progress forward. And what does that mean for us? What does that mean for folks that run businesses? What does that mean for folks that are entrepreneurs? It means one thing. It means that the days of focusing on a million different things and doing them all mediocrely is dead. The most important thing now is to focus on your core competencies. And the way you figure out what your core competencies are is asking why. Why, over and over again. Zero in on those core competencies and put all of your energy and all of your resources in executing on that. If it isn't a core competency, outsource or automate it through technology. Those are the ways you survive in a modern economy, at least from my experience.
Oh, I love it. This idea of real focus, true focus. I read the book Essentialism once by Greg McKeown, and he talks about that, the idea that the word focus or the word priority used to just be a singular word, right? You could only have one priority, but suddenly in this modern economy, we believe that there's such a thing as plural priorities. There's such a thing as multiple. I love this idea of true focus. Clearly, you guys are doing that, Dave. Hit us with the next one. What's this failure that I think is scary for a lot of people, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I think that is one of the most common fears that folks have, but it's something I embrace, and it's something my team embraces. And I believe very simply, fail often, but fail fast. The only way you're truly going to learn is through failures, because it forces reflection. There's this thing that I talk to my team about all the time. So, leadership is two ways. It's, a window, you look out in the market, and it's a mirror. By failing often, you're forced to look within and say, well, why did we fail? How can we switch it? Is it really a failure? What did we learn from it? And it just helps catalyze that learning process. And that's so absolutely important. And you have to be really comfortable with it. Failing and change is something that exists throughout the human experience. And so if you're not embracing it and not enjoying every moment of it and getting the positives out of it, then you're not living it fully, at least in my opinion. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, well, I want to unpack it a little bit even more. I got a specific question for you as CEO of a company who's obviously got a board of directors, people they've got to, potentially investors or at least shareholders or, at least your employees that you've got to answer to. How do you communicate this ability to fail often and fail fast? Like, I think of startups or young companies that have boards of investors, boards of directors that just they expect 10x of everything all the time. If you fail, how do you communicate that that's okay with those people?
I mean, I think it is relating on a human level. I mean, here's the deal. I've worked for venture capitalists. I've worked for private equity folks. All of those folks have failed. Michael Jordan failed how many times in his life? He was told he couldn't even play basketball. Michael Jordan. I mean, this is part of the human experience. And boards of directors, I'm a big believer in being transparent and open and honest, and failing fast. Not where a failure costs $5 million, but maybe costs $5,000. But the person that made the error learns from it. Just had an issue with a new leader where he made a determination, wasn't right, but failed fast. And the first thing he said was, listen, I know where I messed up. This is why this was not a good plan. This is what I learned from it. And I failed fast. It's something we embrace. It's just creating an environment, Rex, without fear. Because for me to sit there as being a leader of a company and say, oh, no, I don't fail. What do you mean? Oh, no, I've never failed before in my life. That's ingenuous. It's not true. So I'm a big believer in, walk the talk. And my team will hear me say, hey, that was a mistake. I failed there. I learned a lot from that experience. Done a lot of things right, failed a lot. I failed my way to success every step of the way.
Sure. So it's really about the openness, on top of that failure, though, the willingness to discuss it, to allow others to fail, to have the conversation about what that means. I love that. That's again, another opportunity for reflection. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and Rex,
right, so
no surprises, right? No surprises.
Yeah.
If you fail and you don't admit that you're failing, that's a surprise to boards of directors and surprises to investors. Don't believe in that either. Again, no surprises.
Yeah, love it. Well, hit us with the fourth pillar here.
So the fourth pillar that I think is really, really important is assume positive intent and do the right thing. Assume positive intent when you're going into any new relationship. Assume positive intent when you're going into any new partnership. Positive intent is essential. If, nothing positive in an organization can happen with negative attitudes. It doesn't happen. If there are negative attitudes in a negative culture, it results in negative corporate earnings. That's what happens. So what you have to learn is that positive intent and stay absolutely aligned to it and do the right thing. Do the right thing by your people. Do the right thing by your planet. Do the right thing by your partners or products. It isn't that hard. It's just remember to do the right thing. Have a good moral compass, because there are people who are impressionable, that work for you and look up to you, and that is incredibly important for you to do. Set an example for the people on your team. Culture's caught, it's not taught.
I love it. I love this idea of assuming positive intent. I think this can be especially challenging in a digital age where we're communicating over lots of different mediums. I mean, assume intent in the initiation of a relationship. That's a great way to start out. But as those relationships develop, obviously there's going to be emails or texts or chat or phone calls. And I think a lot of our nonverbal communication is lost in those mediums. And so it can be very simple for us to slip into, well, I bet they're trying to, get one by me, or they're trying to pull the wool over my eyes, or assume this negative intent based on, or even just a negative connotation. I love this idea of like, hey, let's just assume the best and do the right thing by everyone. And we'll all kind of continue to lift each other up there.
Well, I appreciate that feedback, because that's exactly right. How many times have you seen an email come through and two people read it and have a different impression of what that is, depending on their own bias, right? I might read an email and say, yeah, these folks are big fans of ours. You might read it and say, oh, these guys hate us, Dave. It's so important to always come back to positive intent.
Love it. Well, this final pillar, I think, is particularly interesting coming from a data company. Why don't you share with us?
Sure. So one of our primary core values is dream, which is data rules everything around me. For all of you folks that are young, that is a nod to Wu-Tang Clan's Cream. Data rules everything around me is a simple adage where we focus on data, but you can't focus on data blindly. You can't just say, yes, the data is telling me the full story, because that is not true. The data tells you part of the story. The other part of the story comes from the people. So my eyes on data, my ears on people. And that during that process, you look at the data points, and sometimes I'll do it with my ears on people originally and then my eyes on data. This has helped me so many times in my life. I can't even tell you. I had a consulting project that I went in, I met with the CEO. He told me, this is my best sales rep. Name the person. This is my worst sales rep. Said, okay. So I spent some time. They didn't have a lot of data together on what their folks were doing, or even what the growth trajectory was in the territory to know who their best sales were. That was a gut check. Well, the problem with gut checks is they can be biased. So I went in and did a bunch of qualitative and quantitative data analysis on revenue numbers, growth numbers, and it actually turned out that the CEO had it exactly wrong. His worst sales rep was actually growing his territory by about 137% year over year. His quote unquote best sales rep, she was actually losing about $1 million out of her territory every year. But for some reason, human bias got in the way, and it wasn't a true reflection of the people. And that's how I run all of the organizations that I partner with, is really looking at the data, understanding the data, but then speaking to the folks that are on the ground. Say, hey, this is what the data's telling me. What do you think? Hey, it looks like we're losing business in this certain vertical of the organization. Talk to the sales rep. Hey, what do you think? This is what the data's telling me. What do you think? What are we hearing on the streets? What's the conduit to the streets? Because that's your people, right? Or your clients directly. Yep. Pick up the phone and talk to them. Ears on people, eyes on data, not the other way around.
I love this idea. Yeah, I think this is really key. When you look at the data, it could tell you that a certain sales rep is the best sales rep. But there could be other initiatives in the company as well that you're shooting for, that you might say, hey, here's someone who's driving this certain cultural element forward. Right. Like, hey, they're innovators, they're trying new things, and maybe the data doesn't tell the full picture. So, understanding those other elements is really critical. But if you don't look at the data, if you don't have your eyes on the data, you don't realize where you're losing money, and that, hey, maybe that cultural initiative isn't worth $1 million loss in that territory this year. We're not willing to swallow that pill.
That's right. And here's the thing. It's amazing to me, Rex, how many business owners and entrepreneurs I meet that this still is a foreign concept, understanding how to analyze the data and where you get the data points from and how you gather the data. It's really important for a modern business owner, a modern business leader, and entrepreneurs to understand data, because it will give you amazing insights into your organization, and amazing insights out to the community that you're looking to serve. So constantly get, one advice to anybody that wants to be a future leader is understand the principles of statistics and data analyzation. Because if you don't, the chances are your competitors will, and that's going to be an unfair advantage.
Well, I think that's great advice, Dave. I appreciate what you shared with us today. If someone wants to information from you or find out more about your company and what you're doing, where are they going to find you?
Sure. They can find us on assess.com. It's www.assess, so 2 S's.com. And you can always find me on LinkedIn, just at Dave Saben. And my consulting website is www.edtechgrowth.com. And follow me on Twitter as well.
Excellent. All right. Dave, I appreciate you sharing with us these 5 key pillars. I think there's just tons of some gems in here, and I look forward to sharing this with the audience. Thanks so much, Dave.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me, Rex. I hope it was helpful to folks listening.
Absolutely.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.